This is David Page, and you're listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, where it's our take on life, liberty, and the pursuit of gravy, while you, the listener, are invited to come up on the front porch, grab a beverage, and set a spell. We've got a great show lined up for you, as always. But before we begin, let me introduce you to our starting lineup. Tying up their shoes and running up on the field, number 10 in your program, number 1 in your hearts. Running the Facebook Live and the YouTube Live, playing shortstop tonight. It is Ryan, a.k.a. Magic Man.
Hey, everybody.
And then we've got the head of the team. He's the El Capitan. It is our producer, Brian.
Hey.
And I'm playing catcher, evidently. Not the pitcher today, evidently. I am your co-host, Biggin, and how about you? Producer Brian, where can our friends find us on the socials?
We are on all of the socials.
All of them.
Well, we're on all the important ones.
Most of them.
Facebook.com/Southern Fried Philosophy. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at SFP Radio. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/UCCVEM8FHQ2YKTUMGUMI5NPG. You can always email the show.
That's an uppercase N, by the way.
Well, yeah, so capital U, capital C, capital V, capital E. You get the point.
We'll move on.
Yeah, you can always email us at sfpradio@gmail.com. We'd love for you to support the show, patreon.com/sfpradio. And we are streaming on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and the TuneIn app.
Absolutely. Listen, if you have a few extra dollars, we would appreciate it. Honestly, most of our money goes out the door to help other people anyway. So it's more of a treasure box that we put stuff in and then delve it out as needed. So we would appreciate that. So thank you for doing that. Also, again, I know there's more than 100 of you that listen to the show. So for crying out loud, how many more weeks do I have to tell you to go to YouTube, click the subscribe button, smash it, lick it, cuddle it, whatever you want to do with it. That's between you and the button, consenting buttons. Please just, smash that and then just subscribe. Turn off the notifications. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That'd be great. Just to subscribe. We need 100 people to do that, so that would help us out a lot. If you're staying at home and you want to do your own podcast, shoot producer Brian an email at headlines@sfpradio. That would be awesome. And if you want to be a show sponsor, email me at sfpradio@gmail.com, and you could get your name listed on the sponsor shout out at the beginning of the show. We want to say shout out to our listener from Wales. I picked Wales specifically because episode 176, if you guys remember.
Are these the same whales?
No, it's a different one.
Okay.
It's the country of Wales.
There's no H.
Yeah, no H. 176 title is called Famous Wales.
Maybe he meant famous Welsh.
Oh. Maybe he just misspelled it and was trying to find famous Welsh people.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Norman.
Famous Wales. That makes a lot more sense now.
Way more sense. By the way, I took that little nugget and I showed my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law and my wife, and we had a groovy time going over Norman's tweets. If you don't know what we're talking about, go listen to episode 176. That would be great.
Yeah, we recorded the whole thing. You should check it out.
And it's free, at least for now. I'm going to start making you pay. If you don't smash that YouTube subscription, we're going to cut these off at like 5 episodes only, and then you got to pay for anything else. Yeah. So smash that YouTube button. So I'm going to ask you, like I ask you guys every week, how you be darn? Magic Man.
Hey.
Doing good.
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Hey, I'm about a few ounces lighter tonight. Not due to dieting, but I had some skin removed. And again, smack the YouTube button so you can see this.
Oh, yeah.
Got a Band-Aid here, got one here, and then I had a couple other little spots removed today, and relatively painless. The worst part was getting numbed up, getting the needle stuck in there. But
that's disgusting.
And actually, it's like halfway getting injected in it, the pain went away. It was really cool.
Oh,
so
fast.
I just ate
so
dinner.
Fast. Yeah, it was very fast. Yeah, very fast. But yeah, doing good. Went down to Georgia, Southeast Georgia last weekend.
How was that?
Visited my in-laws. Had a great time seeing them again. My niece made us some meatloaf one evening for dinner.
Yes.
It was really good. Yeah, it was really good.
How'd she make said meatloaf?
All I saw was a loaf of meat with some ketchup on top, and that was it.
All right, I'll give you that.
So
It was either ketchup or barbecue sauce, but whatever it was good.
Either way.
Was it juicy?
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't like a dried out hamburger patty.
It was not a dried out hamburger patty. It was juicy, and it had flavor, and it was just I was really impressed. She's 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
And did a great job with it.
Well
We need
done.
to get the recipe so
Well
we can.
done.
Probably should. Yeah.
I've given you the
Or
recipe.
hopefully maybe she can come up here and visit, and we'll have her make it, and then invite y'all over, and
There we go.
there we go.
There's that.
What were you saying?
There's that.
There's that. I feel like we've got a creepy vibe going on tonight. I don't know. Producer Brian, how you be doing?
I read some news yesterday that kind of shook me a little bit.
Oh,
So
you got shook.
I got shook.
Okay.
I was shook.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So growing up in North Carolina, I was born and raised. There's a couple of things you almost take for granted
Okay.
growing up here. The tea's sweet.
Absolutely.
The barbecue sauce is tangy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the basketball coach for the men's program at Duke is Coach K.
Not no mo.
Like those are never changing things, right? My entire life, my entire life, to be clear. So I just saw the news, Coach K's retiring, and I'm not a Dookie, but I don't have a problem. I mean, I'm one of the not Carolina people, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
So as far as North Carolina guys, usually it's either Duke or Carolina. I've always been just a not Chapel Hill guy. So, but since I was born, Coach K has been the coach at Duke.
Yeah.
And that's changing in a year, right? And that's just kind of, I really kind of was like, what's that mean? It's just been a constant. You don't have to be a basketball fan to know who he is, right?
Sure. I mean, he's an icon in college basketball.
Yeah. Winningest coach, I believe. Depends on how you look at it. I know. You. This is a hot topic for you.
I understand. Yeah, it is. And being in North Carolina, I do bleed blue, but it's a different kind of blue. It's for Kentucky. If you're new to the show, I'm a huge Kentucky basketball fan, and I didn't even want to bring this up because I figured you guys don't care about basketball, so I won't. But you're right. I mean, in North Carolina, it's a staple that Coach K is the coach of Duke.
Yeah.
But now, again, he's retiring. This is his last season. We want to say thank you to, I guess, his hurting back and I guess the cicadas that said enough's enough and he's going to retire and COVID and whatnot. So I hate Duke. The question for a Kentucky fan is who do I hate more, Louisville or Duke? It was Louisville, but at this point, because Duke has stolen way more players than we wanted recently, because they've won more recently, it's kind of tilting towards hating Duke more. So I'm glad to see him go. I hope the assistant coach that will become the coach fails horribly. Kentucky plays Duke in the Champions Classic. So my ideal situation is we beat them at the beginning of the Champions Classic, and then we beat them at the very end at the championship game. So a bookend defeat of Coach K would be amazing. And Coach K and Coach Cal aren't the biggest fans of each other, so that would even make it better. So,
and this is some big shoes to fill, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You imagine be it first time coach. I read up on the guy last night. He played for Coach K, and then couldn't get a real job, so he came back and became a coach for Duke, and now he's going to be the guy. I can't imagine that pressure. That's all.
Yeah, that's a ton of pressure. And we see that also. Who else? So the Louisville head coach played for his assistant coach, and then Louisville has been a dumpster fire lately with all kinds of shenanigans that's happening over there. Patino had strippers come in for the recruits. There was a lot of violations that were happening there. And then now, more recently, the assistant coach was trying to, he was, when you hold something over somebody else and they're trying to get money. Extortion. It was extortion.
Okay.
So the assistant coach was extorting the head coach. So that recently happened. So it's a dumpster fire over there, and I'm kind of just eating my popcorn, watching Duke fail and Louisville fail, and loving it. So there's that.
How you be doing?
I'm good. I also came back from Georgia, and so I was really excited when I saw the weather that was going to be in Georgia. Beautiful 86 degrees, but the week before it was like 100, so I was like, this is perfect. And then I get down there, and producer Brian says, you guys are missing some great weather. And it sends me a screenshot of 72. And I'm like, no.
It was amazing.
You were saying amazing weather. I thought we were having amazing weather in Georgia. Evidently not.
That's great for Georgia in June or
absolutely.
late May.
There was no humidity, which made it even much better.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was fantastic. Other than that, still dealing with this drainage cough thing, whatever's going on. So bear with me as I try to regain my voice and all that fun stuff.
It's only been like 2 years.
My wife says it's kind of, yeah. My wife says it's kind of sexy. So, hello. So there's that. All right, so let's go to our Southern phrase of the week. You've heard the phrase, she was madder than a wet hornet, or wet hen, sorry. Have you ever seen a wet hen? Any of you?
Nope.
No. Magic Man? You still alive?
If I have
look
it,
like you just smelled a fart.
I promise I didn't.
Okay.
Anyways, and anybody who knows me is probably like, yeah, right. So anyways, if I have, it was probably at my sister-in-law's house. She's got some chickens and roosters.
And that's where the meatloaf came from. I'm just kidding. So if you've ever seen a wet hen, if you have, you know that being madder than a wet hen is very mad indeed. Hens sometimes go through a phrase called broodiness, and they'll stop at no length to incubate their eggs, and they get agitated when you try to collect them. Hens used to get dunked in cold water to break their broodiness. This phase is used to describe a woman who is beyond furious and is using that anger to cause a scene. Note to self, do not attempt to dunk said woman in cold water.
I was going to ask if anyone had tried that.
No.
And if they did, they probably didn't live to tell the tale.
No, they would have a Band-Aid over their face like Magic Man does now.
I think, there's the real story, right?
One thing I want to bring up, producer Brian, I was scrolling through the old Instagrams, and I noticed a SFP headline popped up on the Instagram saying, here's a new episode. Tell us about the SFP headlines.
Well, after a 361-day break, I believe.
Nice, well done.
Yeah, it was really close. I think that's the right number. But I finally found the time to record an episode, found some clips, and I spent Tuesday evening recording it.
Well done.
Got I don't even know how many clips I got. There's 8 or 9, I think, stories in there.
Yeah.
It's about a 15-minute podcast, which is long for the headline show. So
yeah, you were making up for lost time.
Yeah, making up for all that extra time. Yeah,
361 days right there. So again, for tonight's episode, we have David Page. He is the author of Food Americana, and he also created this little show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. You may have heard of it. I don't know. So he is scheduled to be on. We're excited about that. So in the meantime, we're going to go through some topics. I'm going to give you some topics. You guys tell me which ones you want to go through. The West Virginia lotto, Canadian caught peeing on a camera, 17-year-old fights off a bear, COVID vaccination super protection, and Biden makes sure girls get ice cream. Any of those sound interesting to y'all?
I think the bear one is the most.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't want to miss the bear conversation, right?
Okay. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago, we did Americans Fight Animals, and 6% of people has said that they would think that they could go toe-to-toe or paw-to-fist with a bear. And we thought that that was insanely insane, that there's no way anybody could do that. Well, this week, turns out that on a security camera, a bear in California jumped up on top of a brick fence, it looked like, and she had her cubs with her. They were kind of meandering along, and then some dogs started nipping at the cubs, and then the mama bear gets pretty upset and starts swiping at the dogs, which, trying to protect her cubs. I totally get that. And then a smaller, bigger mama bear, a 17-year-old girl, sees that her dogs are being attacked in the backyard, and she goes, grabs the dog, and pushes this brown bear off the side of the wall, and I think even smacking it in the face while it was falling down. So evidently, either she's braver than we are, or something just took over, which in an interview she said, I wasn't even thinking. I just wanted that animal to leave my dogs alone, and pushed the brown bear off the wall and evidently won the fight.
Yeah, I've seen that video. That's incredible.
I mean, I think she had some extra dogs, it looked like. So, I mean...
Yeah, there were several.
I think, one less wouldn't have been that big a deal. I said the guy with no pets, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have any pets?
I have 2 children. Does that count?
Yeah, I mean...
So that's, yeah. A lot of the videos, you don't really see the cubs there. Mm-hmm. But one of the first ones I did, like, the cubs were, like, right underneath mama bear, right?
Yeah.
Dogs come running out. Bears get out of there, or the cubs get out of there. And mama starts, like, reaching down, fishing for puppies.
Yeah. So she just pushed that thing right off the wall, man, and evidently won that fight.
Yeah, it looks like she's wearing like a bathrobe or something. Like whatever she's like it's an interesting attire. Maybe just a dress, but
it might have been, like, but it looked like
flies out. That's
well. What's crazy is she pushes the bear off, and then she grabs the last of the dogs and shoos the other ones back in, and then the bear jumps back up on the wall as she's running back into the house.
Oh, so, wow! It was ready for round 2.
All's well that ends well there.
Everybody was safe. There was no dogs or humans.
That could have ended very badly.
Yeah.
For her.
Good for her. We also talked about last week how it was Roanoke, Virginia is imposing a tax on plastic bags. Well, I went to the local, my wife had a Walmart pickup, and I was like, well, let me go pick up said groceries. Went there, came back, and I started counting how many bags there were in our grocery pickup for 1 week. Turns out there was 30 plastic bags, 30 of them.
Oh.
One bag had a pint of blueberries. One bag had like one, and I can understand the bread, but it's very minimal what they put in these bags. And so I did the math. For that one trip would have cost me $1.50 in bags. If I did that every week, that would be $78 a year in plastic bags. That's a good bottle of bourbon right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you going to start complaining about the way it's bagged when they're charging you per bag? Or are you going to expect some stuff, your bread and your milk in there, so you don't care anymore? Just like, how much stuff can I put in this one plastic bag so I'm not getting charged, right?
Right, yeah. We're going to fill that sucker up. So the West Virginia lottery came out and said they saw the Ohio lottery, and they said, hey, we're going to do something similar. And producer Brian, this one was on your headlines. Mm-hmm. And so they said, we're going to give out $1 million. They're going to give out a couple trucks, I think it was, guns, and trips to West Virginia. If you got
25 weekends, which is like
25 weekend.
Yeah, like 25 weekends.
Oh wow!
Like maybe it was 20. I'm thinking I'm not sure if one person gets all 25 of those, but that's the way I read it was. You could get like a bunch of stays, or maybe it's just 25 trips in the West Virginia state parks or something.
Gotcha. So they're trying to get on the lotto bandwagon. And so I got to thinking, like, what are the things that North Carolina could give away? If, West Virginia, that's pretty typical of guns and trucks and money, right? Mm-hmm. So what would infamously North Carolina give away?
Cheer wine.
So a case of cheer wine. If you got your COVID vaccination. All right. That's on the list.
And then barbecue.
All right. How much barbecue would we need to give away to compensate people or to encourage people to get their COVID shot?
Well, we've got some nice beaches and stuff. You could do like an Outer Banks vacation or go, stomp through the mosquito lands out there on the East Coast or something.
Yeah.
Spend the night in the Biltmore house, and be treated like how they would have been treated back then, like with servants around and stuff. Kind of
we're going all out.
That would be fun.
A Biltmore vacation. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Maybe play a round of golf or basketball with MJ. He's living here. That would be good. Any other things?
Season tickets or something.
Oh yeah. Sweet tickets to the Hornets.
Yeah. Or anything, NASCAR.
I feel like we could call old Roy Cooper up and give him our suggestions. What do you think?
Yeah. Free subscription to the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast.
Oh, that'd be good.
Hey,
maybe
awesome.
The winner would then donate $1 million to the podcast. That'd be great.
There you go.
All right.
I did see actually today that some clinics are giving out $25 like cash cards for vaccinations.
Can it retro back? I want my $25 gift card.
I wish I wasn't so quick, right?
I know. Man, I should have held out.
I just saw this before we started recording. Anheuser-Busch has said that they're going to give out $5 free beer credits once 70% of the country has been vaccinated.
To whom?
They're just going to, I guess, it doesn't say the U.S. will give, announced Wednesday, it will give all U.S. residents aged 21 and older a $5 free beer credit.
Where?
Once 70% of the country is vaccinated.
Like, where do you get said beer, though? And for $5?
It's going to be like a coupon or something, probably.
Oh, okay.
So you probably go on the website, enter your, give me your social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden name, and then you get a $5, which gets you a 6-pack of something in a red can.
I think the website is actually sfp-anheuserbusch.com to put in all that information.
That's got to be it.
Yeah. Well, we won't do anything with that. I wouldn't even know where to start. I'd be like on Craigslist. Like, does anybody want this information? I'm horrible at that. Good thing I'm a good guy. All right. Can you talk to us about this Canadian peeing on the camera?
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, there was a lawmaker in Canada who went for a run and then came back. Apparently, he just had the Zoom open.
Yeah, we talked about this guy on our show.
Got stark naked. So, okay, it's been a month, right?
Right.
Well, he did the same thing, but this time, I guess his laptop points towards the bathroom, maybe. He got caught again with stuff hanging out, basically, I don't think he just heard it, but this wasn't a public session, so only his coworkers got the privilege. But now he's basically stepping down from some of his more important duties, and he says he's getting help.
Yes, he is.
Does that mean he's going to get someone to close his laptop for him? Is that what help means in this situation?
I think he realized that after the second time in a couple of months, he realized he had a problem with that.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean,
maybe I like this too much.
Right.
I mean, you don't do that twice. No.
That's there's something going on. There's some exhibitionism or something here.
Mm-hmm. Magic Man, what are your thoughts on that?
It just doesn't make sense how somebody wouldn't realize that they're exposed and with the camera on. I mean, I don't know. That's just that's crazy. That's crazy because I mean most people would be keep an eye on their modesty. It's kind of
sure.
I don't understand. I didn't understand the first time, and now it's like, okay.
I may have understood
don't even understand more.
But don't understand this at all. All right. So I just recently got a message that our guest is here.
And now, our feature presentation.
All right, Mr. Page, are you on with us?
Oh, you probably want me to turn on my camera, huh? I'm sorry.
It's whatever you want to do.
Yeah, 40 years in television, I can't handle this. It's obviously my advanced age.
How are you doing, sir?
I am wonderful and shocked that anyone would consider Hornets tickets a gift.
I am too.
Throwing. Wow.
Yeah, no, we've had a horrible season this year.
Yeah,
right?
sorry about that.
Have you had the nachos, though? I mean, it's great to go sit and eat nachos.
So I would say if you're going to give away the season tickets, you have to do the full package of food as well, because then it's worth driving down.
Yeah, because there's nothing like sports stadium catering to really make your day.
Is that the next book for you? Sports stadium food.
It might actually play a little part in my next book. I'm not sure. I'm looking at other ways in which Americans enjoy food other than sitting at a table and having someone come over and serve you. So that could get in there. Food at stadiums and arenas and such has actually been going kind of upscale over the last couple of decades. So, what's really fascinating is nachos became a thing when they were introduced as a concession at, I think it was Texas Stadium. I'm not sure exactly, but there was a guy wanted to sell them, and the folks running the concession said no one will buy them. They're too messy. And they finally tried it, and nachos became the thing that they are now all across the country.
Oh, wow.
So you've gotten your unexpected food tidbit for the evening.
I mean, we can just shut this whole thing down.
Let's all go home.
Thanks for coming.
Great. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
All right. So with us, we have our special guest, David Page. He is the author of Food Americana. And again, he created this little show that you might have heard of, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Triple D, as some may also know it as. David, we're very excited to have you on the show. Obviously, none of us have missed a meal, and we love food.
But join the club.
You, as a guest, are right up the alley, so we really appreciate you being on the show with us.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Absolutely. So I did get your book, and I did do through Audible, so I listened to it on a trip, and don't ever do that, because it was... Every mile, I just got hungrier and hungrier.
Kept pulling off for little snacks here and there.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, we're on the barbecue chapter, so I had to go get some barbecue, and then now Chinese. My wife is like,
this. In the part of the country you're driving through, there's like nowhere to stop.
Well, where are you driving?
There's plenty. From Charlotte to Georgia.
Oh, there's plenty of barbecue.
South Georgia.
There's all sorts of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of stuff.
That's a nice little
My experience driving through South Georgia, there's not you'll see hit a big city and then there's nothing for 100 miles. But
well, yeah,
there's some of that too.
Yeah, but when you get to, maybe I'm remembering, I used to live in Georgia a long, long time ago, and my sense of it would be when you get to a small town, go find yourself a meat and three.
Absolutely, yeah. It was at night, so it wasn't, not everything was open, and I was really charging for that Buc-ee's gas station, so I was kind of saving for that. Have you ever experienced a Buc-ee's?
I don't believe that I have, so explain that to me.
So I don't even know how to explain. It's like a Walmart gas station. It's got everything that you possibly could want. You could get furniture, you can get pictures with sayings on it, and then it goes to kolaches. I know you're familiar with kolaches.
Oh, kolaches. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Now, why are they there?
So they started in Texas, and kolaches are huge in Texas. It's a chain of
Czech, I think. They Czech somebody. They were Central European somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 9 different types of kolaches, and they have sweet ones, which there's plenty of those, and then there's brisket. It's delicious.
Well, brisket is God's gift.
Absolutely.
There is nothing. I was lucky enough years ago doing diners to visit Louis Miller's barbecue in Taylor, Texas, which to this day I believe makes the finest brisket on earth. Now, full stop, I have not been to Franklin's barbecue in Austin, which is supposedly God's ultimate gift, but because he uses prime meat, which seems a little insane for barbecue. But watching Bobby Muller, who was alive at the time, his son Wayne now has the place, but Bobby's father Louis started the place, and I watched Bobby making these briskets. He rubbed them with salt and pepper. That's it. Put them on this offset smoker that had been working for some 60 years or so. At certain points, he would turn around and just move briskets to different parts of the smoker where I guess the heat was different. And you'd say to him, Bobby, why'd you do that? And he'd say it was time. And then when it was time to eat, and, traditional Texas, they slice it for you on a butcher paper. You pay by the pound. It's just heaven. It's the most unbelievable, I was going to say meat, but dish you'll find anywhere. And and everyone has their own Texas favorite. Someone's going to argue with me and say it's the Salt Lick. They're wrong, but it's an amazing experience.
That was beautiful.
Were it not for bagels, lox, and cream cheese, then Texas brisket would be my death row meal.
Oh.
Yeah, but
really?
Bagels and lox still come in first. So.
Wow.
Okay, so where are you from originally?
Oh, who's Jewish from New York? Yeah, okay. Yeah, duh.
Okay.
Took a while, huh?
Not me.
Yeah, fine. I live now. My wife and I live about an hour, 45 minutes from New York City. Our daughter lives in the city. So every time to go in and visit her is an opportunity to stop by the appetizing store and leave with a pound of lox, a pound of whitefish. Yeah, good guess on the New York Jewish thing.
Actually, I listened to that chapter, and it was really interesting. I had no idea. I mean, again, I grew up in Florida, moved to Kentucky, Texas. And
what part of Florida?
Jacksonville.
Okay, that is not where my people go when they're forced to retire and move to Florida.
No, it's
a law, At 65, you got to leave New York and move to Boca. But,
yeah, absolutely.
No, the whole bagels and lox story is fascinating because there's so much.
Yeah.
On the one hand, what was an ethnic Jewish dish then became a New York dish because New York embraces its ethnic foods, is now so national that the company that sells the most bagels in America is now Dunkin' Donuts. Now, those aren't New York bagels.
Those aren't real bagels.
Although increasingly in places you wouldn't expect, there are people now making a living making artisanal bagels. There's a place in Denver where they even treat the water to approximate the mineral content of New York water because allegedly it's New York water that makes New York bagels different. No one's ever, no scientist has ever shown me that info.
Yeah, they said that about the pizza dough too, right?
Yeah,
it's the water.
But again, look, pizza dough is dependent on the protein content of the wheat you use and the temperature and style of the oven you use. When Italian immigrants came over here, they encountered higher protein wheat. You ended up with a different kind of pizza. But we do that to all foods that starts, our entire cuisine, the premise of my book, is that our entire cuisine is created from foods of other countries and cultures, which we adopt and modify. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people talk about it's not authentic. Well, it's authentic Chinese American. No, it's not authentic Chinese, although Chinese is a series of regional cuisines. So you're better off saying authentic Cantonese or Beijing style as opposed to Chinese. Nonetheless, pizza in America has had a glorious run. Is it similar to pizza in Italy? No. There are a few places that make pizza Napolitano well. There are many more places that make it poorly because pizza Napolitano, made the way the Italians want to make it, is soft and soupy. And if you give that pizza to an American pizza fan, for the most part, they're going to turn their nose up at it. In fact, there's a guy in Phoenix, Chris Bianco, who runs a place called Pizzeria Bianco, which is generally considered to be the ultimate artisanal pizza place, not just in the world, but probably in the universe. And he doesn't make pizza Napolitano. He said, I don't particularly like a stoppier or softer pizza. So he uses the same ingredients, but he makes the crust to be more like one you'd find in Puglia or Rome. And he's upfront about it, as opposed to a lot of places making a very crispy pizza Napolitano.
Your book, by the way, is fascinating. I loved it. I really did. It's it's a little bit of diners, drives, and the dives, and where you get to hear the different restaurants and you get to hear people's thoughts on the dish. But there's also so much history. Almost there's a History Channel series called Foods That Make America. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of a little bit of that as well, which is fascinating. And then it has recipes on there, which I'm like, this is perfect.
You know, what I like, and the recipes were not initially my idea. The publisher suggested them. So there's a reason to have a publisher. But what I did, we didn't want to make a cookbook out of it, but we have a recipe at the end of each chapter, and most of them are famous recipes, like the white barbecue sauce from Big Bob Gibson's down in Alabama, or trying to think of, I think it's Tony Gemignani's pizza recipe that I use. Tony is one of the leading figures in pizza in America. I actually audited, he runs a pizza school out of one of his restaurants in San Francisco. And I spent a few days there learning that it's really harder to make pizza than you think. And I stink at
it. You mentioned there just burning your hand trying to get that pizza to go around very quickly.
Well, it was a Napolitano-style crust, which means you got 60 to 90 seconds to deal with it. And you got to turn it while it's in this 1,000-degree oven. And turning it isn't a matter of turning it. It's a matter of tilting it and then pulling the peel back. And some physics law makes it fall like it should. But if it doesn't drop exactly where it was before, and that, because it's been where it was, that part of the pizza deck is cooler than the rest. If it doesn't exactly drop there, then you start burning the pieces of the crust that are outside that initial circle. It's, as I said in the book, I was not the smart kid in the class.
David, which one was your favorite chapter to write in the book?
Probably because I got so deeply immersed in this massive event and was there with people I knew previously. It would probably be the barbecue chapter, which I bookended with my visit to Memphis in May. I was very lucky when I decided to go to Memphis in May. Then I started researching past winners, and it turned out that the winner of the previous year, and once more before that, was the Shed in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which I had put on diners in like our second season. So I knew them. I called, and we actually made them kind of nationally famous at the time. I called them up and said, hey, could I hang out with you? Could I be a fly on the wall as you try to repeat as grand champs? And they said, of course. So that's a writer's dream. I mean, I'm inside a micro universe that is reflective of everything that happens at this event. And also because of my association with those folks, it gave me some cred with other folks at the event. And also I got to eat some unbelievable pork.
Oh,
it was just,
I bet.
They do whole hog, and you just, it's unbelievable. There's just pig fat everywhere.
Yep. That's like a typical Tuesday for me.
Okay, well, there you go.
One of the things I thought was really cool, and I think it was in that chapter as well, is you said you can't just go to one restaurant. Everybody's like, oh, this is the best restaurant. You need to go to it. But to really understand just barbecue or just that state, you have to go to different barbecue places in that region just to understand that one. It's not just one restaurant. And I think for so many of us, we hear, oh, this is the best, you have to go there. But for you, it's try all these other ones as well.
You've got to. First of all, especially with barbecue is such an individualized art form. It is completely unique to whoever's making it. For one thing, barbecue has all these rules that people then religiously break. Technically, barbecue is low and slow cooking over indirect heat. Except for the very famous guy, I think in the Carolinas, who cooks his whole hog on direct heat in 4 hours at like 9 bazillion degrees. Or the Rendezvous restaurant in Memphis, which is famous for its ribs. Those ribs are cooked on direct heat. They're Charlie Vertigos, who opened the restaurant, started making those ribs because when he took over the space, he found an abandoned coal chute and figured he could turn it into a grill. So those are grilled ribs, which is not what anyone would expect the alleged best ribs in Memphis to be. And I like them very much. I'm not going to say they're the best in Memphis by any means, but they're damn good ribs. And also, when you're attending Memphis in May and a torrential rainstorm breaks out and the Rendezvous is right across the street from your hotel, it's a good place to eat.
Yeah, it's such a subjective thing too, right? Like the best ribs, if you go to like competition rules versus what people
competition
associate
rules
as good rules, fall off the bone.
Yeah, well, ribs should not fall off.
I don't like. Yeah,
competition. Anyone who competes will tell you competition barbecue is intense because the judges in the blind box competition, where they don't know whose product it is, they only get one taste. You got one piece of something to bring it all home to you. So the taste profile of much of this stuff is as if it's on steroids and would not be something you wanted to eat a whole lot of. On the other hand, the judges, the folks from the shed, one of the judges who had, they have blind box and they also have in person where it's not anonymous. One of the judges who was there in person later complained to them that the pork was too moist. Now, the whole goal of barbecuing pork is to make it moist. It's like saying Halle Berry's too pretty to be a movie star. Right? It's like, hello? Knock, knock. And it was the finest pork I've ever eaten in my life. So what do I know?
Wow.
Well, see, I found the right position to be in. I went into the trailer when they were filling the blind boxes. And once the boxes were filled and removed, I ate all the pork that had been left behind.
Right.
That's genius. Well done, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How was the book inspired? Like, how did you come up with the idea?
Well, two things. First of all, writing for television is far more complicated than people think, but it isn't like writing a book. In a book, you get to sit down and just tell your story. It was a dark and stormy night, and then this happened, and then Oedipus killed his father, and off we went. In television, you need to write invisibly with a goal of using the pictures and sound as your main storytelling device, and the words should almost invisibly propel the viewer from one event to the next. And every TV producer thinks, that's hard. Writing a book must be so much more fun because you just sit down and say whatever you want. So, like most producers, I'd gone through decades thinking I had a book in me. And finally, one day, I decided it's time to pull it out. My interest in food, in the etymology of dishes, in the people who make the food, create the food, was no less than it had been when I did Diners or a follow-up series about craft beer. And I was looking around for a new project. I wanted to kind of get re-energized, and I thought to myself, it's time. Let's put this to paper. What I didn't realize is the amount of time it would take. I figured about a year. In fact, it took 2 because naively, as a first-time author, I decided to make a book out of a multitude of different subjects. I could have done a book on hamburgers. Instead, hamburgers is a chapter out of 10 or 12, whatever I have. The research for that chapter could have supported a book of its own. So I ended up kind of researching a dozen books to make this one. But I enjoyed it immensely. I'm very proud of it, and it's getting good reviews. And I'm already working on a sequel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very good. I don't want to pardon the pun, I don't mean to hog the conversation.
Feel free.
So, Magic Man and producer Brian, if you have questions, please interject as well.
So, one of the things we like to ask our guests is, how do you like to make your meatloaf? Like, what is your...
This is a serious question?
Make it?
Yeah, it's an inside kind of conversation we ask a lot of our
I know that
guests.
Theoretically the best combination is beef, veal, and pork, but I never get around to having all 3 of them in the house at the same time. So generally I make a basic 80-20 ground beef meatloaf. I include eggs, breadcrumbs, some Worcestershire sauce, salt, pepper, sometimes garlic powder, sometimes not. Usually cumin, which I find is a terrific additive to virtually any protein. And then I glaze it heavily with tomato paste and ketchup. And I go for a pretty obscenely thick coating. In the belief that somehow it will seal in the juices. I don't know. And then I put it in the oven. I cook on a higher heat than many people. I cook a lot of proteins around 500. And then when I pull it out, I cut it into wonderful pieces, and it usually falls apart in a way I wish it wouldn't. But it's terrific.
That's fantastic.
So that's how I make meatloaf.
Sounds good. It sounds very good, yes.
Okay.
We had... The background on that is we had one of our sponsors say that he made meatloaf, but it was just meat, onions, and pepper, and that was it.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's not meatloaf, that's just a hamburger. So last season, our thing was just we're asking everybody how they make meatloaf. So that's the backstory on that question.
Yeah, but meatloaf's such an ultimate comfort food. And,
it really is.
It feels like home cooking if you're cooking for a family, but let's face it, it's, you just throw some stuff in a thing and off it goes. So, and especially with both parents working for the last, 50 years, 60 years, the whole concept of family meals has been jeopardized to such a degree that any opportunity to produce a comfort food favorite is a great thing. I actually made my wife a recipe. I don't cook from recipes. I don't clip recipes. But the Jewish Daily Forward, which in my grandfather's day was a Yiddish newspaper in New York. It's now, you can still get a Yiddish edition, but it's become a pretty widely read newspaper to people whose interests include Jewish things. They introduced their new food columnist, and in her first piece, she included a recipe for one of her favorite dishes that her mother used to make. And it was chicken thighs, basically in a mushroom soup casserole sauce. Now, I have been just mocking my wife pleasantly for years because she likes that horrible mushroom soup green bean casserole people have at Thanksgiving. And I pretend to die when she raises it. So I sent her kind of half as a joke, would you like me to make this? And she said, yeah. So I actually cooked with mushroom soup the other night. And it was pretty good.
Well, there you go.
The
condensed canned mushroom soup, which, especially in the Midwest, is an ingredient, a major ingredient in any kind of casserole. I mean, we lived in Minnesota for 10 years where they call it hot dish when they just put a bunch of stuff in a pan. The one thing this didn't have that Minnesota is famous for, which is generally a pretty good idea, is they top a lot of stuff with tater tots.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can't beat a tot.
Right. Just to add a little bit, if you go back to your meatloaf recipe, put some honey on your on the top.
Excellent idea. Excellent, especially because it'll caramelize.
Do that,
especially that temperature. Yeah. It's gonna 500 with honey. You gotta get a nice crust on there.
There you go.
I will definitely do that. I used to use maple syrup in a similar way when I lived in New England.
Even because I'm a huge bourbon fan, I even mix a little bourbon with the ketchup and the honey, and then put that on top.
Well, I'm a big bourbon fan too. Why would you want to burn out the alcohol?
You get that taste on it, just a little bit of that taste.
I'm joking with you. But
what's your bourbon you go to?
Weller's.
Nope.
You're not supposed to admit to things like this.
Okay, it's just
even though it's not bourbon, I like Jack.
Okay.
It's a Tennessee sour mash, which technically isn't bourbon, but my daughter used to compete in Lexington, Kentucky, in show jumping.
Come on.
And we we did a lot of bourbon.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's a chapter on barbecue in your book. I'm in North Carolina, born and raised, so I have very specific opinions.
Well, what part of North Carolina? What's your sauce?
I'm from Charlotte. I'm right on Charlotte, so I'm smack in the middle. So I tend to get the Lexington style is what's served around here. I'm not saying I don't have a bias, but did you get into the history of that at all in your book?
Yeah, a lot of that. Certainly the mustard sauce in South Carolina, but I think the general use of vinegar in North Carolina, as I recall, and don't quote me, I'd have to open the book and my research again. I think a lot of that was attributed to German immigrants who were trying to replicate the flavors of dishes like sauerbraten that they had left behind. Although, look, vinegar had always been used as a rub on whole animal barbecue, but I think a lot of that went back to the Germans.
Yeah,
interesting.
My understanding was the German, like the Lexington style with the tomato added.
Well,
maybe
tomato was added after Heinz ketchup was invented.
It was in the 50s, I think.
No, Heinz ketchup was invented, I want to say 1904 or something like that. But that's when you started getting red sauces. It was. I have to open the book and check quickly. It was introduced to the world at one of those World's Fair-like expositions, maybe the one in St. Louis, but that's what caught on. Although, as I quote, I think it's John T. Edge. No, it's not John T. Edge. It's an authority on barbecue and Southern food, as saying, in the final analysis, regional styles kind of boiled down to one or a few pitmasters who that was their special blend. Mm-hmm. And when people started liking it, others started to copy it. Some of the historical research that I read but did not quote in the book attempted to link particular sauces to particular pitmasters who supposedly were the first to do it. But and it's fascinating because on an etymological level, barbecue is the most personal of foods. You know, I decided to do mine this way. And then other people started to copy me, and all of a sudden I have a regional style. On top of the fact that the animal used depended on what was available in that region. Sure. I mean, you don't get a lot of mutton outside of Kentucky.
That's right. But it's good.
It's damn good.
Yes, sir. So we're all in North Carolina. The name of the show is Southern Fried. What are some trends that you see in America in food, and then maybe specifically the South?
Well, America's drawing from the South in one particular respect, which is the mania for fried chicken sandwiches. Fried chicken having been created in the South.
Yes, sir.
And the insane chicken sandwich war, which I chronicle in the book, as one of the experts I talked to explained to me, he said, look, chicken has surpassed beef in terms of the amount that we eat. He said, people may think they're doing it or claim they're doing it for health reasons, but it's almost all fried.
Right.
You know, nationally, I see Americans becoming a little more adventurous in that regional cuisines of the various countries whose foods we've adapted are starting to creep into the U.S. from areas that we previously hadn't been eating their foods from, such as with Mexican food, a dish called birria de res, which is a spicy stewed beef dish. Birria was first noted in central Mexico, where it was generally goat. That would just be birria. Then birria de res, which is birria made of beef, made an appearance. And over time, it traveled north to Tijuana, of all places, where some industrious chef decided to make tacos out of it in a specific way. You take the taco, you dip it in the cooking liquid, you put it on the grill. Now, right off the bat, it's turned a shade of red. You start grilling it, you put birria, the beef, on top of it, you fold it over, you flip it on the grill, and you serve it crispy with a cup of the cooking liquid, which now you're calling consommé. And the way to eat it is to dip the taco into the consommé, and it's amazing. I drove with my wife 90 minutes from my home in South Jersey to a truck on the street in South Philadelphia to have some absolutely amazing birria. And birria has crossed the country. I mean, it went from Tijuana to L.A. and I guess San Diego, and then it started moving east. It may become part of Mexican-American cuisine, or it may have its moment and then disappear, but it's having a hell of a moment right now. With respect to food in the South, let's talk about barbecue for a minute. There's a trend that you're either going to like or not like, depending upon your personal opinion, but it used to be that you had to go to the place that made that regional kind of barbecue to get it. And I looked forward to that. I looked forward to the fact that there were regional foods that you had to go find. Over the last 10 years, barbecue of all sorts has become available everywhere. In North Carolina now, there's a piece in the Texas Monthly Magazine, which I haven't yet read. I pulled it aside, that questions whether or not you can get good Texas brisket in North Carolina, where a number of barbecue restaurants are now offering it. There's a very good barbecue restaurant in Chicago called Smoke with a Q that was premised on opening on the idea of bringing together various kinds of barbecue from all over the country. On the one hand, I don't think people in Utah should be deprived of Memphis-style barbecue. On the other hand, there's something nostalgic in me that wants to have to go to Memphis to get it. And that hasn't happened just with barbecue. I mean, you can get lobster rolls all over America now. I used to go to Maine with my parents in the summer to enjoy lobster. That trend, the nationalization of formerly regional foods, will continue. With respect to the South, for the longest time now, you've been able to get Southern biscuits all over the country. I remember doing a piece.
Can you, though?
What's that?
Can you really?
Well,
Can you really get them?
Okay, it depends. There's 3 guys from North Carolina who went to Portland, Oregon, and opened a biscuit shop. And they're kind of famous. And at this moment, of course, I can't remember the name of their place, but we put them on diners like 15 years ago, and they're still in business and they're expanding. And I would bet that it's a good biscuit. Is it the biscuit I would get in a small town in southern Georgia? Probably not. Should people be deprived of biscuits in Portland? Probably not. Has the biscuit as a special entity been forever sullied and, I would say, destroyed by Burger King? Not Burger King. Who's the one that you can get biscuits at Burger King. That's not a biscuit.
Can you, though?
KFC has some nasty biscuits.
The biscuit as a representative, hey, this is real Southern, ingredient has gone national. Is that good? Well, a bad biscuit is not a good thing. A good biscuit is wonderful. But then you get into the subtleties of trying to explain to someone why mixing bacon fat, milk or cream, and flour and stirring it around for a while is a really good thing to eat for breakfast. I mean, that in fact, it's interesting. Biscuits and gravy remains totally regional. Now, grits, interestingly enough, have moved on a little bit. The shrimp and grits thing became trendy. I live in New Jersey. I make shrimp and grits at home. Nothing like I could get in Georgia, Charleston, because A, I'm using frozen shrimp, and B, I'm using instant grits. But it's a start, okay?
That's like using Bisquick for biscuits.
I have said to my wife, I'm going to learn to make grits from scratch.
Come on.
It's not hard. You just have to get the right stuff.
Yeah, well, you have to get and that. And look, that's become foodie snob heaven anyway. Ever since the restaurateurs of Charleston made a very big deal about heritage ingredients with which they're cooking, and now one of those chefs has moved to Nashville. You get into that whole rarefied foodie thing of I don't know the difference, but it's got to be that. We're at a point where the maize that's used in tortillas, the best maize, the heritage stuff, is being bought up by highfalutin restaurants in the United States, and this happened a long time ago, I expect, but it's completely out of the price range now for the average Mexican, most of whom are making masa, are buying prepared masa, and certainly not nixtamalizing it themselves.
Going back to anywhere outside of its region, sourdough bread in San Francisco.
Well, an awful lot of people will tell you that they perfected sourdough bread during the lockdown.
Oh, well.
But I will not argue with you. That is a dish that is, I think, a lot harder for people to make than they think. And the best I've ever had is in San Francisco. I have not tried to make it myself, but it's like bread is probably the most abused ingredient in our menus, in that we have so come to accept bread that is industrially produced, wrapped in plastic, that we forget what real bread can taste like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, fresh baked bread. And my wife and I, we've made a simple recipe with flour, yeast, salt, and water.
Really?
That's it. That's all that's in there, and it is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Bread's one of those things
store-bought.
that's going to vary a ton by region, even if you use the same recipe, because of the climate and the humidity and the temperature. Like, if we make sourdough here, you do the exact same process you do in California, it's not going to taste the same.
No, it's going to be different.
It's not going to look the same.
But again, baking is science. Cooking can be art. There's room for a little of this or a little of that. Baking is literally a chemical equation of the way in which different molecules are going to interact at particular heats in particular volumes. Baking scares me. I don't bake. I love to cook, but I don't bake.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball of wax.
You're talking about the trends. How has COVID factored into American trends and what kind of where we're going now?
Well, it's factored into how we get our food more than what we are going to eat. First off, it killed a whole bunch of mom and pop restaurants, which is a shame because to me, those are the most prized part of our culinary ecosystem. Secondly, we're going to have permanent changes in the way in which food is delivered. For one thing, ghost kitchens, which had already been on the rise, are here to stay and will likely continue to proliferate because, for those listening who may not realize it, ghost kitchens are large kitchens that pretend to be restaurants online but have no bricks and mortar. All they do is delivery. And especially as real estate prices in major cities cripple restaurateurs. I mean, we were losing an awful lot of restaurants in New York just because of raised rents before the pandemic. The concept of running 4 or 5 different virtual brands out of the same commercial kitchen without paying servers, without paying rent, with no front of the house costs, can be extremely appealing and thus leave an awful lot of the workforce without work. But we're going to continue to see more of those. We're going to see an increased level of usage compared to pre-pandemic of drive-throughs, deliveries, takeout of any kind. Having succeeded with a limited menu during the pandemic may continue in that direction. But I think overall the big impact is going to be an increasing amount of food compared to before the pandemic being eaten away from the restaurant. I mean, 7-Eleven at this point is experimenting with drive-thrus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the drive-thru, you're going to see drive-thrus in places you would not have expected them in the past.
Why not just get like car hops to come out while you're pumping your gas, on skates or something?
Well, sure.
If you have a 7-Eleven.
Open that gas station.
There you go.
But it's interesting because convenience stores, which are so often associated with gas stations, are increasingly becoming more and more restaurant-like as it is. I live in New Jersey where Wawa is legendary, and if you watched Mayor of Easttown, she certainly liked her Wawa. The amount of food being offered cooked fresh at Wawa's, this is part of the corporate plan. They've really expanded what they're doing behind that counter now. It's much more than breakfast, and it appears to involve real cooking. Well, so many places don't. You get food at, you go to Starbucks, anything there that is allegedly cooked is simply heated in a convection microwave. I got a great story for you, too. I mean, as a country, I do not understand why we just lemming-like support chain restaurants over mom and pops where the food is better. My daughter's college graduation was in New York City. And this was a couple of years ago before the pandemic. It was a warm morning, and all the family was gathered, and I was deputized, as in ordered, to be the guy to go across the street and get everyone breakfast sandwiches. And kind of like biscuits and gravy in the South, the New York City breakfast sandwich, which is a bacon, egg, and cheese on a soft roll, is a legendary food item. And done right, it is a perfect food item. So I walked across the street looking to get some breakfast sandwiches, and there were two storefronts next to each other, and the one on the left had this line coming out the door and snaking down the street. The one on the right had no line. So I walked into the one on the right, where it was a bodega, which is a New York convenience store. The name comes from its initial evolution in generally Puerto Rican neighborhoods, but there are bodegas everywhere. I walked in, and a guy who'd probably made 330,000 breakfast sandwiches in the last week was behind a grill, and I ordered our breakfast sandwiches, and he's fresh cracking the eggs and flipping stuff around, and he did it right. These were going to be perfect. I walked out, and the line was still spilling out of the place next door, which was, of course, a Starbucks. Now, nobody in that line thought to have real food cooked fresh? I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think there's something about the consistency of knowing, like if I go to McDonald's A and I go to McDonald's B, it's going to be the same exact thing.
And not to pick on McDonald's, but it's going to be the same exact disappointing thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not opposed to all
there you go
fast food restaurants. I think In-N-Out does a terrific job. I also think In-N-Out has a mystique that may make me currently think the food there is better than it is, the same way when I couldn't get Coors back east, I thought Coors was something special. And then they started shipping beer back east, and I realized that it tasted like the urine of a farm animal. With all due respect to Coors.
Sure.
I'm not going to materially injure them in how much they sell. But at least at In-N-Out, they make it when you ask for it. It's fresh beef. And let's be clear, if you have an animal style with all the sauce on it, you can't taste the hamburger. It's just this wonderful, messy thing that, but it's great.
Yeah, I'm not a fan personally, but
You're not a fan?
I'm not. I've had it once. I was in California a couple years ago. You know, if you're there, you got to have it, right?
Didn't do it for you?
And I got a double animal style.
Well, look, if you don't like a double animal style, then you're not going to like In-N-Out, because that is their quintessential burger, and it sends me into orbit. I will eat all of those that you don't. I will bear that civic responsibility.
That being said, I also can't eat bagels and lox for breakfast. I think it's delicious, but not at 8 in the morning. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. But, different people, different tastes.
I'm guessing you're not of my tribe.
Oh, I would be remiss. Are we allowed to talk about diners and drive-ins?
Talk about anything you want. Go ahead.
So how did that start? Like, you were in network news before Triple D. And then how did that transition happen?
Well, I had been in network news for 15 years or more, and I didn't like where it was going. I was line producing Good Morning America at that point, which means subject to the sign-off of an EP. Every third week, the show was mine, which also meant every third week I got 12 hours of sleep. But more to the point, you remember when Regis did Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They came to me and told me there's going to be $1 million winner tonight. You're going to have him on the air tomorrow morning. And I said to myself, this isn't exactly the network news that I signed up for 15 years ago. I didn't say it to them, but I decided it was probably time to get out. So I went looking to get out, disastrously took an executive job as a senior VP at a home shopping channel, that was based in Minneapolis. Took me about 10 minutes to realize that wasn't for me, but about 2 years until I left. And figured, what the hell, I'll open a production company. So I opened a production company and had no work. I was pitching various places, but not picking up any jobs. And I finally decided, I called Al Roker. Al was a friend of mine. He had worked for me on the Weekend Today show when I ran it with a partner. And Al also had a production company. I called him up. I said, hey, I'm starving. You got any work? And he said, yeah, I'm doing a fair amount of stuff for the Food Network. You want to do some of that? And I said, sure. And I started picking up projects that he would subcontract to me, including at one point a documentary on the history of the diner. When I was done with that and decided that I liked the genre of food television, I started pitching the network myself to a resounding chorus of no thank you. I called and called and called and pitched and pitched and pitched, and they refused. Finally, I'm on the phone one day. It's late in the afternoon on a Thursday or Friday with an accommodating Food Network executive who took my calls. And finally, after I pitched some things that she turned down, she said to me, don't you have anything else about diners? And I said, oh, absolutely, Christine. I've been developing this show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And she said, well, we have a development meeting Tuesday. Give me a write-up on Monday. And I put down the phone, and I was delighted. But I had a problem because I had not been developing a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I had just pulled the name out of thin air or a body part, depending upon how scatological you want the story to be. And I spent the weekend calling people, because back then you used your telephone to talk to people. And I put together a proposal for a 1-hour special, and shortly thereafter they picked it up. It was not pitched as a series; they just wanted a special. But what happened was, Guy had just won their Food Network Star Contest back when they still believed that they could use that contest to generate future stars. To the best of my knowledge, Guy is the only one who's been a success. But at that point, they saw the contest as a pipeline, and they wanted him to have a primetime show. So they had asked a couple of big name production companies to come up with proposals for a primetime show. And in the interim, they put the special on the air because it couldn't hurt, and they'd get a little more FaceTime for Guy with the viewers. Well, the special did better than I think they expected. And when the proposals came in from the big boys, they hated them. So now they had a dilemma. They had the only viable proposal for him was mine. So they picked up a short first season. And then they were surprised by how well we did. And I stayed for 11 seasons. Wow. I think the show is now in season 30-something. So turned out okay.
I mean, I'll tell you, my dad and I have watched hours and hours and hours of that show. And I appreciate the show very much. Again, we'll watch the show and be like, hey, we're going to such and such, and we're going to Charleston or whatever. What are the restaurants there? So, I mean, your show has had a huge impact on, America, but specifically like my life. And I know, Producer Brian, you said you as well. Yeah,
well, I watched. I remember back in, I guess this was early 2000s, right? Mm-hmm. When that came out, I was watching. That was some people had just had like TBS on all the time. I had Food TV on all the time. That was just on, period. I watched all of it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And that, I watched the next Food Network Star, whatever it was. I saw the one Guy won, whatever. That was just, it was on, so I saw it. That show, I wish it didn't come on at night because I was always so hungry watching it. I went to a bunch of those restaurants. I used to travel a lot, and I'd look up, okay, I'm going to be in Richmond, Virginia. Have they been somewhere in Richmond I can go to?
Didn't we go to a fried chicken place in Richmond?
I ended up it was what I would definitely call a dive bar.
That's good.
In Richmond.
That's good.
you guys definitely turn the lights on when you come in because that was a dark hole. But the food was good, you know.
That's the key. Most of the places maintain their quality. Occasionally, we get a call from somebody complaining that they had gone to a restaurant we'd been to and the food wasn't good. And I guess subconsciously to blow their minds, I would call them and say, "Hi, I'm the executive producer of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I'm sorry to hear that you had a bad experience at whatever the place was. Please understand that when we went there, it met our standards. So either you got them on a bad day or things have changed." But it was important to me that the places the food had to really be good. It was very hard to get on the show.
The food was good here. It was the aesthetic.
What did the name of the show say?
Right, exactly. This is real. This is real life. All right.
What I was most pleased by, and I certainly didn't expect this, is I started early on hearing from restaurateurs who said that we saved their businesses. You know, because mom and pops are always on the edge. And there were a number of places. There was a barbecue joint in Lexington, Kentucky, that we had on the show. And some months later, my daughter was in a horse show in Lexington. So I said, "Hey, let's go to the barbecue joint." And it was like I was embarrassed. I mean, they went so nuts over me. And we couldn't keep going back because they wouldn't let us pay. But she said we were about to file bankruptcy. And it's that sort of thing that made me feel real good, because I have a deep affection for people who own and run restaurants. By definition, people in the hospitality industry have to want to please somebody else or it isn't going to work. And then the amount of work people put in and frankly, the amount of abuse they can take because not every customer's a nice guy. I was glad that we were of some value in that respect.
So you basically paved the road for like John Taffer with Bar Rescue and Gordon Ramsay with his...
I didn't pave the road for anyone. The concept of going to a few restaurants in a half hour was not new. I think I can say immodestly that we elevated it and we made it more real. I held the shows to the same fact-checking standards that I held the investigative unit to at 2020 when I ran that. Wow. And we told the truth. If you look at any of the I don't know what they do now, but in my day, everything that was made in the show, we showed every single step. So it was completely honest. And also making TV's fun. You get to meet people. You get to learn new things. I found out so much about American cuisine from doing that show that I had known nothing about. And it was a hoot.
How did those restaurants get picked for the show? I heard a rumor, and I don't know if it's true, especially doing some research on, is like restaurants could pay you $10,000?
No.
Is that not true?
No. Come on. Although initially when people didn't know who we were, some restaurateurs would say, "This is some sort of advertising thing. I'm supposed to pay you to be on the show." No. We had a full staff of researchers whose only job was to find restaurants in specific places, because one of the elements of visual entertainment, be it movie or TV, that people don't realize, is in the final analysis, everything is determined by the budget. So we would shoot 4 segments at a time, 4 restaurants in a week, but those would be spread out over different shows. And it was very important to get geographical diversity. So the first place I wanted to look to go were cities that were on a border, where you could do something in Kentucky and something in Ohio and get as much diversity as possible. Gotcha. For when you checkerboarded these pieces into your different shows. First, I would decide, let's go here. Then the staff would begin to research the restaurants in that area, starting with the usual suspects, the local newspapers, the local magazines, the state magazines, and then begin calling people, who wrote for those publications, or in some other way were connected with the local restaurant industry, and ask for recommendations and ask where not to go. Once it looked like we had enough consensus on some places, we would begin calling them and talking to them. And right off the bat, you're looking for a couple of things. How real is the food they make? And how good a character is this for television? I'm not looking for someone over the top. I'm not looking for someone to compete with Guy in the spiky-haired category. But television is voyeurism. It's all about spending time with somebody you like. That's why, to pick a name from the past, that's why James Garner starred in so many shows. That's why Tom Selleck.
That's why this podcast doesn't do so well.
That's a different issue. But the point is, traditional television is, let me hang out with this person I like. Obviously, people like Guy, but I had to book guests that were likable or unique or interesting. More importantly, though, the food had to be legit. I mean, I live on a tourist island that has a place famous for pancakes. I thought, well, that could be interesting. And immediately when I started asking questions, it became clear to me they use a prepared mix. Well, if your specialty is pancakes and you're not making your pancake mix from scratch, you're off the show. It was that sort of thing. I didn't trust restaurants that used prepared salad dressings or prepared sauces, if only because it's cheaper to make your own. And I assume that if you're running a good restaurant, you're smart. And it was that sort of quality control that we employed in our screening process. And 5% of the time, and the network thought I was nuts for this because I ate it, 5% of the time when they walked into a restaurant on in-person inspection, it did not meet our standards despite all of our screening. And I would tell Guy and the crew to walk out, say, sorry, we can't do this. As I say, that was literally 5% of the time.
Wow. Do you have questions? You had that thought. I can see it.
I do have it.
Clicking.
Okay. So you didn't have like a scout team go out and go like, we order a taco at this place and see what,
couldn't afford it.
Ask some questions.
Everything is determined by budget.
Wow.
Travel is the big killer in television. We honed the screening process to near perfection, and we did it remotely.
Wow.
Today, I'd probably modify the process to include a video walk around, which we couldn't do back in the day. I mean, I just sold a car that way. There's this service that they call you up and they walk you around your car with your phone, and you like point at things, and then they give you a quote and come and take your car. Sold a 2008 Mercedes SLK 55 AMG with they just looked at my car over the phone. So, okay.
Wow. What were we going to say, Ryan?
No, I was going to say, I saw where Triple D went to one of the restaurants I love going to, and it's Pinky's West Side Grill.
Where's that?
So that just... Where is it? It's in Charlotte. It is...
There's a couple of them.
Oh, what's those intersections? it's like...
yeah, it's in Charlotte, and then they kind of spun off.
It's in Charlotte,
I don't know what...
Okay, now, in your view, is that a place they should go?
They did.
But should they?
Oh, should they?
Okay,
absolutely. It's a staple here in Charlotte.
It's a chain now. I don't know if it was a chain at the time.
How many restaurants
become popular? There's probably 10 of them.
Yeah, see,
I bet. But
is there
that
10?
would trouble
Let me look.
me.
I'll look it up real quick. There's a bunch, I feel like, but there's
maybe
not.
I was only aware of 2.
Yeah,
There's more than 2.
You get into that, at what point is it not a mom and pop if mom and pop have opened, have expanded a little? Yeah. 3 or 4 locations maybe, although we would have to go to the original.
Okay, you're right. There's only 2. There's only 2. I was thinking of something else, I think.
There's only 2.
I've been to both.
You
There's
went
2.
to 10 to 2. That was
I've
quick.
eaten at both of them 10
2?
times, okay? That's the problem.
What?
He eats too much pinkies.
That's good.
It was kind of the same
Wait,
thing
what's their signature dish? What do you eat there?
Burgers,
It's a burger.
pretty much.
Yeah, they're a burger
Yeah.
place. They'll do.
They make a good salad,
They
too.
have a burger with peanut butter on it. Let me find
I
it.
focused in the book on a burger with peanut butter on it in Indiana, near Purdue University.
Named after a football player.
Yeah, Dwayne Purvis. It's the
There it
Dwayne
is.
Purvis All-American.
They have some hot dogs.
One of us in relation to Jim,
I do
the bearded chef.
I do know you went to Cabo Fish Taco, and that was also on the show, and that's why we went there, and my wife loves it. That's kind of one of our spots now.
You know, fish tacos were probably originally Japanese. You talk about authentic food. I hate that word.
Tempura.
You know, fish tacos are Mexican. Right, except it's generally believed that they were first made by Japanese fishermen who had come to Mexico, and that the frying of the fish was an emulation of Japanese frying technique, which now escapes me, of course. But, that's going to drive me nuts. Tempura, thank you. So, yeah, it's to purists, that Mexican dish is Japanese.
What's one of your best memories, David, of doing the show, of Triple D?
Best memories of doing this show. Well, remember, I was only on the road for season 1, and between traveling and putting the show together, and we only had 3 months from green light to air to start.
Oh, wow.
I would say that my best memories of doing the show were actually doing the pilot, when I learned that I didn't know who Guy was at first. I said to them, "Do you want to talk about a host?" They said, No, we got the guy we want you to use. And they named him and said that he had won the Star Contest, which I did not know there was such a thing. And I went to the website and I saw this picture of this man-child wearing shorts and flip-flops who looked like his head lost a bet with a blender. And I literally said to myself, I'm screwed. It wasn't. Now, we started talking on the phone and it was clear he was not going to be a total disaster, but it wasn't until we got on site and started shooting the pilot that I had this revelation that he was green as hell. There was a lot he had to learn, but it was quickly apparent that he was the most naturally talented TV performer I'd ever worked with. And I've worked with some very big names. And I think it was probably shooting at the Bayway Diner where it really punched me in the face and said, this could work. Because I had been pitching shows for 9,000 years, and the possibility of something working was beyond consideration. Although this was in New Jersey, and Guy, God love him, wasn't terribly familiar with how things are here. And he's behind the counter making jokes about the mob and being rubbed out. And I finally had to take him outside and said, Guy, in here, that ain't a joke. I mean, there was a guy at the counter packing, okay?
Yeah.
So we went back in and did away with the mob humor. But I guess getting it off the ground and then the overwhelming throughout the time I was with the show, it's rare in the TV business that you actually get your vision on the air. And I actually got on the air with a show the way I wanted to do it. And that I am forever grateful to have had that opportunity, because that's real rare in television.
Whose idea was the car?
What about the car?
Well, the car, like the classic car.
Okay,
like,
when we went,
iconic.
when we shot the pilot, I begged, borrowed, stole, or rented wanted a different classic car in each city. Because it just felt like it should have classic cars. When they picked us up, it was clear that I needed one car. That the finding a different car in each town was going to be a pain in the butt, and frankly, I needed one car for the illusion that Guy was somehow driving across America. We never said that,
right?
But you wanted to see Guy in the car. So I called the woman from whom we had rented that particular Camaro for our Boston shoot on the pilot. Sight unseen, paid far too much money for it. Got it to Minnesota, took a look at it, realized it was in no way number matched. On our first shoot in Las Vegas, the top quit on us halfway open as we're losing light. And I'm paying some guy from down the street to literally remove the entire canopy so I can shoot the stand up, but he's sitting down and driving. Yeah. And when I stopped doing the show, I sold the car. And the production company that does it now, I guess, I see someone told me they bought a 68. This was a 67, which perfectly aped my wife's car when she was in high school or college. It's funny, though, because at one point, we used to keep the car, the trailer that carried it, we had a hobby farm in Minnesota. We had horses. And we would keep the car there between trips. And one day, out of the blue, I said, hey, let's take the car out. I haven't driven in it. You want to drive the car? She says, sure. So we take the car out, and we're zipping around with the top down. And I say to her, how fast do you think we're going? She says, I don't know, 70, 80? It was 50. I mean, there is no suspension in a 1960s muscle car. None whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah, they're good for straight lines.
Oh, yeah, they're fine for straight lines. So is my father's 440-inch Hemi Chrysler. It could go real fast, but you could turn the wheel for about a month till anything moved,
Yep.
David, where are we going now? Where's Page Productions working on, and what are you guys doing now?
I'm not doing any TV. I kind of really wanted to change. So I am doing, I'm writing. This is my next new career. I've had many over the years. When I was, running the investigative unit for 2020, I didn't foresee doing a lot of food coverage. So I've cycled through careers one after another. The writing thing is incredibly, it's a lot of, plus, look, if you're a journalist, you need two things to be a journalist. Curiosity and intelligence. I at least have the curiosity part. And the opportunity to just dig into stuff you didn't know about. When the first breakfast sandwich recipe was published? I came across it today in doing some research for the next book. 1897.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I'm just basically spending the day by myself in my office looking up stuff or writing stuff down. It's nice. I got my dogs with me. That leads to a second floor porch. It's a lovely setup.
Nice. Wow. I would again encourage all of our listeners to buy that book, Food Americana. It is a fantastic read. Again, don't do it when you're hungry because it's not good for that. But it's fantastic. It really is. I'm really looking forward to the next book. Any idea when that's going to come out?
Oh, give me another couple of years. I
gotta wait a couple of years. This is worse than Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, by the way, I deeply appreciate those kind words, so thank you. No, I learned my lesson. I'm thinking 2 years for the next one.
I know of a guy that wrote a book as well, and it was like on the New York Times bestseller list, and he was saying like it was the most stressful time in his life of trying to get this thing done, rewrites and everything else, and it was difficult. So I understand and appreciate, even though I've never done it, how difficult that must be. So understand that. One question for you. Well, I've had several, but who's the most famous person in your phone right now if you were just to pick somebody?
George Stephanopoulos.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, George blurbed the book for me. Yeah, no, George is probably, I mean, I got a lot of phone numbers, but like I have Mel Brooks' phone number, but it's not his personal phone. You know, he's
Gotcha.
not going to answer. But no, George, I can honestly say that George and I remain friendly many years after we first met at ABC. I copy edited some of his initial scripts after he came over from the White House. He's a great guy. He's a truly great guy.
Like you mentioned, like network news. Like, what do you think about network news now? This is kind of off the tangent of my script, but
okay, let me be real clear. I have a lot of complaints about network news. None of them relate to the bogus BS of fake news. No one at the networks is trying, well, let's leave Fox out of it, but no one at the 3 or 4 major news operations is intentionally attempting to not tell the truth. I am troubled by the fact that, look, when I did it, it was the tail end of the glory days of Big J journalism. I walked through the Berlin Wall the night it opened. We really cared about stuff. Over time, the networks, their newscasts have become far less serious in that there's a lot of stuff internationally that simply isn't covered. The respect that used to be given to reportorial experience has gone away in favor of young, hip-looking correspondents with very little experience, but an ability to walk on camera, which is considered a nifty thing. And there's far too much influence either of consultants or of the kind of mantra that they spill. For example, everything on every network newscast is breaking news, even though they first read it at 10 that morning on the AP Wire. Everything on several of the newscasts begins with tonight. Well, no, it's not happening tonight. Business hours are over. The people you say are hard at work investigating this are not. It's that kind of garbage. And it's also the increase in putting non-national stories on as if they matter. For example, there was a story on just the other day about a couple who, I don't remember, they killed their kid or they didn't get, something like that. Well, unless that is being used as reflective of a national trend, it's still, as sad as it may be, it's still just a local story. And it's getting on the network news because of its shock value. Additionally, thanks to a great extent because of the invention of the cell phone and the camera in the cell phone, there's so much more visual material of no editorial worth that gets on the air. A small plane crashed into a house in Plano, Texas. No one was hurt. But look at these pictures. That's a waste of news time. Also, there's far less traveling of correspondents to places where something is happening. Listen closely to the network news and listen to the tag outs of stories. Joe Blow, NBC News, Cleveland versus Joe Blow, NBC News. There's an awful lot of Joe Blow, NBC News simply tracking pictures that were sent in from someplace else. Certainly the staffing levels internationally are way down. The number of bureaus is way down. And look, that goes back to a definition of what is the job of a network newscast. Is it to inform and be a prestige product, or is it to make money and win the ratings? And obviously the ratings and the money play a massive role in the decisions being made. So also, there's no quality control about grammar. I mean, we had a guy at NBC named Gil Milstein, who in a varied career had been a New York Times writer. He was a jazz critic and discovered a couple of fame. Anyway, his job on NBC Nightly News was the grammarian. And of the various levels of people who had to approve your script before you could put it on TV, Gil had an override over everyone, including Brokaw and including the executive producer.
Oh, wow.
And you don't hear that kind of attention to detail anymore. I mean, just the mismatch in tense or the use of a singular verb for a plural construction, or the opening of a segment with a dependent clause that doesn't actually relate to what follows it. I throw shoes at the screen, but let me make it clear. None of this is about bias. None of this is about fake news. It's about me being a really cranky old codger who insists it was better back in my day.
Well, it was better back in the day. And there's no doubt about that. That's 100% true.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that say it's better
Gil
back in the day.
kicked. In fact, it wasn't even Gil. This was before Gil. I sent a script to New York for what at the time was called a special segment. It was like a 3 or 4 minute piece. And it was something we were doing about street prostitution in Germany. And I allowed the correspondent to write the line that she was, quote, stealing and dealing to feed her habit. The senior producer in charge of those segments jammed that so far down my throat and removed it from the other end of my anatomy with the simple phrase, "We don't write like that at the network."
Wow.
Yeah, those were the days.
Those were the days. Well, speaking of fake news, I'm going to ask you our question for season 3.
Okay.
Or 5, sorry. What is more likely to exist? I'm not saying that you do subscribe to any one of these, but which one is more likely to exist? Bigfoot or aliens?
Aliens.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah. Bigfoot's a guy in a rental suit.
David, thank you so much. Where can people get your book at?
You can get the book at Amazon.com, Target.com, Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com, pretty much any place that sells books. I mean, I've been on the internet, and I'm delighted by the number of foreign booksellers who are carrying the book.
Awesome.
And if you want to follow the universe that surrounds it, I have a Facebook page for Food Americana and an Instagram page for Food Americana.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yes, they are there.
David, thank you again so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Wow. I could literally talk to him for days. I mean, that.
Yeah.
Wow. And it really is. I'm not BSing. That's a great book. If you like food and you want to know like the history of it.
It's like he was writing that for me. I haven't read it yet, but the premise is.
This is right up your alley. So, Magic Man, I'll get a copy of that, send it to you, and so you'll have that. Producer Brian, I'll pay you back for what you're going to buy.
That's whatever. $15, right?
I appreciate it. I appreciate him coming on. What an awesome story. Like, how often do you get to see your dream lived out, especially on network television? Like, he changed the face of Food Network and that show. I mean, that's
he mentioned, you have these artisans who took a thing and they're known for this thing. He crafted a show, a format, that so many others have tried to copy, and some have maybe succeeded.
Yeah, but not as good.
Different spins on it, but that I think him and the show that Anthony Bourdain did, the No Reservations, were like two of the best travel food shows I've ever watched.
And he's like the epitome of, like, if you go to a seat, like you said, and I do the same thing even now, is like, where has Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives gone? Oh, I want to go to that restaurant because they were there. Yeah, I mean, he's changed the game. He really has.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate him coming on the show. It's not a lot of, it's not BS. I mean, we really appreciate him coming on. Next week, Producer Brian, you are on vacation.
I'm on vacation.
You're out, so Magic Man.
Real vacation.
You, me, and we'll try to find a 3, and we'll go from there. Again, we appreciate you guys tuning into the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. Again, if you want any of his information, it'll be in our show notes, and so we will have that. We'll be back again next week. So thank you again for tuning in. This is the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, and as always, keep looking up.